really know where to look. Like, you have to know something about birding already before you would even know which of the 600 species should I key up on my iPhone and play its song. So what's important is that you really get to know your bird book. And by that I mean, you know, there are sections in here of different things. Like, here's the duck section, and there's a warbler section back here. So when you see a new species, and you don't know what it is, are you going to sit there and thumb through these 400 pages looking for one that matches? No, that's hard. What you have to be able to do is know the rough groups. What is a warbler? What is a finch? What is a duck? What is a woodpecker? Then you'll be able to use the quick index in the back and go right to that group, and then narrow it down. Any questions so far? Okay. So you'll have one of those books, and you'll spend a lot of time with it in advance. You want to spend time looking through your book so that then when you're there and some amazing species just flies by, it's perched in a tree and it's about to fly off, you're not spending all your time like trying to find it in the book. You want to know your book well enough that you can know roughly where the different groups are. And you also want to think a lot about these range maps. So what it's showing is, here's for the Pacific wren, one of my favorites. You have the orange area is the breeding range, and the blue areas are the wintering range, and the purple is overlap between the wintering range and the summer range. And so you want to think about what time of the year is it, and where am I, and that will help narrow down what likely species are in the place you're birding. So if you're up here in northeast BC and it's winter time, then you know you're unlikely to see a Pacific wren. So that little brown thing you just saw fly from bush to bush, you might think, okay, it's probably not a Pacific wren. It might be a house sparrow or something like that. That it's more likely to be there. So you want to get to know these range maps. And if you have a book that's about all of North America, that'll really help narrow down. You can look, like here, here's one that's only eastern North America. So you wouldn't, it's probably not likely that you're going to see that in British Columbia. There is a chance, but only if you eliminate all the likely things that are likely to be in this area, then you could consider, oh, maybe it's a rare vagrant from the east. So, okay, I thought we would now practice observing. Whoa, that's crazy. I think it'll fix itself, but somehow the computer has a tricky time with this screen here. I want to play a video of a species and we'll try to identify it. That's crazy. Well, any questions while it's thinking? Yeah?
I was wondering, like, why did you become interested in birds?
Well, good question. I've always liked nature, and I always liked hiking. I grew up in California, and so I went hiking in Yosemite a lot. But I liked just all of nature in general. Birds were in there. I liked them, but I wasn't really a birder at all. But then when I was looking for graduate schools, so after my undergrad, I decided to go to graduate school and study evolution. I was looking for different interesting projects, and there was my advisor, I interviewed at different schools, and he studied birds, and he was studying birds in Asia, in the Himalayas. And I loved mountains, and I had always wanted to see the Himalayan mountains. And he said, if you come out here, help me study birds here, then, you know, you can hike around in the mountains a lot. So that's what I did. And But then I just got more and more interested in the birds as time went by. And it was my thesis project, my PhD thesis. So I got really, really interested in one group of birds called greenish warblers. And it's this ring species, and it's a long story, but I studied those, and then through that I started thinking, well, I should be paying attention to all the different birds around, and got more and more into them. But there are lots of other people that come to birding through a very different route. Like they get very interested in sort of competitive birding in their teenage years, and they become really avid competitive birders and sort of go that way. I don't know what it's doing. Oh gosh, this is crazy. What are you doing? Oh, there it is. Maybe it is. Okay. We'll try this. Oops. So this is in showing you some habitat. I just got this from YouTube, by the way. I just tried to find some things that would be good. But it's in Arizona. And the person who posted it is showing sort of where they are. And you want to think, when you're birding, you want to think about the habitat that you're in. What's the landscape like? Ah, and you spot a bird. So what do you notice about this? You can just shout out. What are you noticing?
It's got like the red color.
Yeah, so it's got some red on it.
Quite small.
Quite small. What else? Okay. What else did you notice?
Long tail.
Long tail? Yeah.
Song.
Song. Yeah, it was singing. So that, see, we couldn't see it very well, right? But we could hear it pretty well. So if you knew its song, that would be a really real way to identify it without even seeing it, right? That would be one way. What else did you notice? So if you were going to try to identify it in here, where would you look? Would you look, you noticed it had a red throat, so would you look at the section on red-throated birds? Or red birds? How are the books organized? Are they grouped based on color? On size? How are they? Evolutionarily? Yeah, that's a good answer. It's close to correct. They're loosely based on evolutionary groups. But a little more than that, they're based on a combination of evolutionary groups and sort of what I'd call functional or morphological groups. So sometimes they group things that are fairly distant evolutionarily together because they're kind of similar in how they look or how they're shaped. But it's mostly evolutionary. So that's a good answer. So for this little bird, anyone want to take a guess as to where we should start looking? Jasper? The president. No? You look like you might have an idea. No? So, was it a duck? No. Was it a finch? What else did you notice? Why don't you think it was a finch?
The beak.
The beak. What about the beak?
It's not like this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the beak is one, probably, if you had a split second to look at a bird and notice nothing else about it, look at the beak. Okay, that's the number one thing. The beak will tell you so much. So it was hard to see the shape, but you could tell it wasn't thick. And what does that mean about what it eats?
Nuts.
Probably not nuts. Yeah, so it's not a seed eater if it has a thick, if it doesn't have a thick beak. So finches are, well, I'll show you finches later. But anyway, they all have thick beaks, like house finch, purple finch, crossbills, things like that. This one didn't. It had a narrow beak. So what does it probably eat? Insects, yeah. Insects is a good answer. Maybe occasional other things, but mostly insects. So which group is small and eats insects? Anybody know? Sparrows? Sparrows often eat seeds, but sometimes insects. Sparrows tend to have thick beaks, not as thick as finches. Over on my starting slide. Warblers. Yeah, I like warblers. So we're going to narrow it down to warblers. Let me go back. It's terrible. It's hard to get it for your view. I intentionally chose the one that wasn't very clear, but anyway. So we'll look in the warbler section, if I can find the warbler section. Here we go. Wood warblers. So they're all these little birds with little bills. Now, where were we at? What's that? What location? Arizona. So you can kind of eliminate a lot of possibilities that aren't in Arizona and that don't have a red face. And we'll just go through. But if I can't find it, that would be bad. Oh, there it is. Okay, see that guy there? Red-faced warbler. So, okay, so that's so anyway, that's an example of a warbler, and I just wanted to walk you through like what's important to pay attention to. So just remember that the bill shape and size will help you narrow it down to these big groups. So big thick bill, it could be a finch. Medium thick bill, a sparrow. And a narrow bill, it could be a warbler or a vireo or a wren. And then you want to look at the general shape and size of the bird. So let's go back to... I had a couple more examples, but I think we'll just go on to this. So to identify birds, we use a lot of things, but for beginning birders, often what you're inclined to do, because it kind of jumps out at you, is look at color patterns. But as you get more experienced, you'll learn that that's important to look at, but you'll get better and better at using this. And this is what birders call jizz, or jizz, but they say jizz. What's the jizz on the bird? Oh, I saw a neat bird today. Oh, what's its jizz? You know, or you saw something. And then what that means is general impression of size and shape. So really good birders won't need to see any color at all. It can be a silhouetted bird flying over the road at sunset. And based on the way it flies and its shape and size, they'll be able to narrow down what it probably was. So also the posture, so like a flycatcher will tend to stand up high on a branch, a warbler down like this, but other than that they're similarly shaped. Flight pattern, some will do sort of a bounding flight, like a northern flicker. It's because they flap and then they tuck their wings and they go down and then they flap again. So it's this bounding flight. Others will fly continuously. Sound is really important. Songs. Song is defined as a mating signal that's primarily done by males. Calls are things that both males and females do throughout the year. And then wing sounds, some things like a Wilson snipe will actually make sounds with their wings. Anna's hummingbirds do that too. Have any of you heard Anna's hummingbirds around here do a display in the springtime where they dive down and there's this loud beep right at the base of their dive? That's actually made with tail feathers that flip out and flutter in the wind. It's this loud beep sound. It's pretty cool. And then you want to think about habitat. If you're in the dense forest here, you're likely to see some species that you just won't see